Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to have you on board. It's Rod, and we're putting a cap on day 3 of LK Launch 19. And this is we have on board some of the presenters from today and some of the folks behind the scenes that have helped coordinate the whole project. So I'll remind everyone that I'm Rod. I'm in Kamoka, and I'm back in my back in my basement. It's nice and cool here. Who else do we have in this little group? Maybe we could just do a around the horn introductions, where you are and who you are.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hooper, the Learning Commons coach, half-time for the Lambton Kent District School Board and half-time teacher at Riverview Central School.
And I'm Alicia Shank. I am an instructional coach, and I currently, right now, I'm sitting on my back porch.
Hi, I'm Mary Lynn Anderson, and system principal for LKDSB, and I am currently in Ottawa in a hotel and getting ready to get on an airplane and go home.
I'm Ben Hazard, and I get to work with the program department. And I am also in Ottawa because Mary Lynn and I were at a conference, and we are sitting in the lounge here, and it's very comfy, but soon to jump in a taxi to get to the airport to get home, and very eager to get into the home confines, the friendly confines of home, right?
Well, the theme of transportation is one that I thought would be a nice way to sort of kick off this meeting. I know we'd settled on, you guys come up with a great hashtag, this LK Launch 19. And I think about launch, and we had originally talked about the idea of a theme of getting on a boat or going on a little bit of a voyage. And when you launch in a canoe, for example, it's usually a little tippy, kind of like Ben's camera right now. It's a little, it's not necessarily totally stable. And in the past, I've gotten into like an outboard motor boat to go maybe fishing, and you start the outboard motor. Sometimes it doesn't really start right. If you're launching on a sailboat, the weather and the wind might play havoc. It might not be smooth. And I think that there have been every opportunity for things to not go smoothly, but in general, they've gone pretty well. So one of the things I'm curious about is what gave the presenters in particular, but also the leadership behind this, what gave you the confidence to get in the boat in the first place and to try this whole thing? As a presenter, what gave you the confidence to step in? As a coordinator and sort of lead person behind the project, what gave you the confidence to get it all going forward? It's sort of an open question. Anyone can jump in on that.
I'll start, just say that I would say Ben and I have every confidence in our team, and that's where our confidence comes from completely, that we completely trust what they're going to do, and we push them, and we know that, but we also know that they will respond and do better things than we ever even dream of, because it just keeps happening. So everything that we have had them try.
And I was going to say something along that lines, because for me, this just doesn't come naturally, and that confidence in speaking in front of people, and that's just not my confident level, and it's who I'm surrounded by. So that's what I was going to say, is that you and Ben are constantly pushing me and to try to be uncomfortable or comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I think that who you're surrounded by makes the biggest difference.
And I agree with that as well. And I think it also, the relationship that has been built within the team, I think that's what pushes me out of my comfort zone. Because Nicole, I feel like I am very similar to you, and I'm not so comfortable with doing all of these kind of out of the normal things. But our team, we work so well together. And I think with having Ben and Mary Lynn there to support us and to really kind of give us that push in that direction, I think it makes it a little bit easier for sure. Mm-hmm.
I think the idea of like creating a context for learning is really important here, because you want to try new things and you want to figure something out. And so what I've really been interested in is that the river hasn't been smooth all week. There's been some big wakes, there's been some audio, there's been some feedback issues, and there's been connection issues. But because we've persevere, not through the perfect waters, but through the real waves and challenges when we're trying something new, I feel like that's led to learning. So I think if the principles are right, which is that we want to share openly, we want to share things that are really valuable for teachers to help students and help each other. I think that a lot of the other things we can persevere through those waves a little bit. And in the end, then we become more resilient in the ways that we can try to kind of support each other and work together. And I think it's certainly, certainly there's no question I've pushed boundaries around, like, let's try this online and do digitally. But I think the other part is, like, looking here at, Rod as a support, but Nicole and Alicia as they've reached out to each other and their colleagues to really find their way through this.
And on that topic of support, Pam has just joined us, and I just want to acknowledge that she was really,
hi guys.
She was really integral in the presentations today as a participant who was willing to share her voice to the sessions if there was some support needed, or to guide the discussion a little bit. So I sort of saw that, and I think the idea about getting into the boat all together, like there were other people going with us. And I think that's true for a number of the sessions that I've sat through, is that there's been a team of people sort of presenting together, co-presenting, and it's not been all on one person's shoulders. A lot of times there's been a lead, but it's really been a team effort, so that when everyone has decided to go on this voyage, we've sort of gone as a group. And I think that lend itself to confidence as well, and everyone sort of feeling that other people have their back. One of the things I'd like to get your feedback on is how you promoted this event. We were discussing just before I hit the record button a little bit about the really good numbers of participants that we've seen in the sessions. I think just about every session's had over 30 people online in the actual event. And how I know we did a little bit of PR with regard to doing some audio buffer little bumpers that we recorded. And I think, Ben, you and Sally, you set the tone of saying, I'll go record something. And then people like Alicia needed a little bit of nudging to get her voice, but they followed your lead in recording these little bumpers as advertisements that we were able to sort of drift out the week before the conference. But I'm curious, what else went on to promote and let people know about this such that we got such numbers? Is there anything that you can point your finger to that sort of layered on top that maybe you did as an individual that helped promote your session or the whole conference?
I reached out to the teachers that I worked with this year, and also some of the principals, just to kind of let them know that this was happening. I will be honest, I don't think that many of mine tuned in. However, I did reach out, and I think word of mouth kind of spread. I also had shared a few tweets and up on my personal Instagram page. But I just think through that dialogue that we have with colleagues throughout kind of the summer, I think it kind of trickled through a little bit more.
Anyone else on the promo side of things, how they put the word out?
Well, I think with Gretchen has a pretty loyal Twitter following. And so I think for her, she was able to share the news that way. But I also think back to those last couple of days in June when we had the Lawson math activities going on. Like, we were talking about it in the session there. And I agree, Alicia, I don't know if those people showed up this time, but I think they will, when we go back to school, they will be the people that watch our recording. I think that's like that kind of promotion, that face-to-face. And I think us talking about it in the context, we're going to give this a try. And we don't know how it's going to go, but join in. And
I think Pam just froze for a second.
And we were talking about the vulnerability. That's how to do this. Yeah. Hi, Sam.
Hi. Sorry, I was just at the arena.
No, welcome, Sam. We've just been talking, just starting a little bit of a conversation about how the conference and individual sessions have been promoted and shared with other teachers. And we've got examples of face-to-face invitations and people using Twitter. And I'm wondering if there's anything else folks have done to that have resulted in really good participation today?
I've been really thankful for the program department in promoting it, and then individuals from the team as well who've been promoting it. But I had been gone away for the last 18 days, so I hadn't been, and I have Twitter, but I haven't been promoting it on there. So I think that our program department and the team has done a phenomenal job in terms of getting the word out there.
I think that there's two things I'd like to chat about. One is that sometimes when we do online things, I know when I do online things, we were talking this before we started recording, but we kind of think of these inflated numbers. But when we think about them in real context, so like if we had 30 people in a room, that would be a really packed classroom, in fact, uncomfortably large. So to get 30 folks engaged in a session is really great, let alone those folks following up. There's a few sessions that have like 45 or so views after. So that really shows some reach and really some impact on the work that's been done so far. So I think that's really important, is that, I think sometimes we think of, okay, well, 30, but 30 is a tremendous participation if we were doing any kind of on-site Summer Institute type of session, that we would want like those kind of numbers. And I think the other part and I think this goes to Pam, and really kudos to Pam and to the whole team, is by showing up and being visible through this, by showing the value, by committing ourselves to it. I think I think that's really led to promotion. When folks just go, yeah, that's it. I'm there for my one and I'm done. And that's okay if that's the time frame. But like when Pam shows up and shows up today and it's just part of the learning, she's showing that there's some value there. And I think that authenticity is, it's certainly noticed by me, and I know that it's noticed by folks across our district.
I think Sam and I also had a
here. Well, you know how
bit of an interesting conversation today at the number of people who registered late as well. So there were a lot.
Yeah. So one of the things I think
is that Alicia?
Yeah, I think her audio just cut out. It didn't sound perfectly pure with that little headset thing. So there she is again. Go ahead, Alicia.
Hi, sorry.
It's okay.
So I was just saying, Sam and I were talking briefly this morning about how I still had to send emails off to some participants this morning. So I think people in the beginning were a little bit kind of leery of what this would look like, and they didn't necessarily want to commit to it. And I do think that as we went through our first couple days, again, that conversation happened and people maybe saw it up on social media and were more willing to kind of join in. So the participation, I think, as the week continued, has also gotten a little higher as well.
Well, you know how I like to count everything.
Go ahead, Pam. Sorry.
And I'm just saying, you know how I like to count everything. So Ben talked about the 30 people, but like if I look at who has been participating, they're not the 30 that we saw at after school sessions this year, right? So it's a different 30. So I think that we can take what are we going to do with that? Because our regular 30 that come to the stuff, like they're going to hear about it and they're going to go, oh, I missed that. And we're going to say, here you go, we can play this. So now with this new 30 that we've had, like if you think about them, the new 30, what can we do for them moving forward too? So it's not just a hard isolated count. I think it's, let's find out who the 30 are. And maybe ask them, like, why did you come to this? And why didn't you come to something during the school year? Like, if we want to be so bold.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I was kind of hoping, and put the invitation out in today's sessions to say, if anyone was a participant, it would be lovely to have them come in and share their voice and their ideas behind that could answer some of those questions. Mm-hmm. But one of the issues we find, and this is for the last number of years when I've participated in online sessions, either as a participant or as a host, is that people who dial in to participate, they don't really fully engage. A lot of them, the best engagement you'll get is you get them to participate a little bit in the chat, and sometimes it's really rich stuff that they'll put there. But I'm wondering if anyone has any ideas about how a presenter in a remote, and this is really an advanced question for really first time running through this for a lot of us, how do we make sure that the participants are having a chance to have their voice out there? If they're uncomfortable using their actual voice, are there strategies that we've employed that have called them to think and then demonstrate that they're sort of paying attention and thinking deeply about what's going on by having them participate in the chat? And I'm not sure that we have a lot of answers, because we've had a few good examples of where we've had panelists put up, for example, a number line and say, where do you think you are on this number line? And a whole bunch of people actually respond to that. But are there other ways that we can use questions, that we can get prompts and take feedback from that chat and engage it in our discussions? I think that's something that is worth thinking about down the road. But I wonder if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Well, I think about a little bit of anonymity goes a long way. Like if we can compare this to our PD Day session, when people signed in, they were like coming into us from Brights Grove. Collective response that was coming out, Pam Blunt says kind of thing on the tweet. I know sometimes when we do ministry things, like, I put LKDSB. So just our collective voice that comes through. So even if we can promote it that way, just to say like, grab a friend, do it together, that sort of thing, that might help in getting to know things a little bit, get more comfortable with this. And just I don't want to feel like I'm spoiling it for tomorrow, but if you think about the comfort level, I was just with Kate today, and her and Tina are presenting tomorrow, and their plans for having someone join them in their conversation has been falling through. And when I left her, she had roped somebody in, and they were rehearsing as I left. So just like, it's a participant that's been with us through a couple of sessions, and so this person is now going to show up tomorrow and be one of the people that's speaking. So that's kind of a nice,
that's rich.
Yeah, so just a little tease there. So when you think about the growth of it, in 3 days someone's moved from like, what is this, to yes, I'll talk tomorrow.
I wonder, Rod, as well, if it comes from your experience as a presenter as well, because I found that, I was struggling even just to make my session in terms of how do I gear this to my audience? And then, there's also that other level of how do I engage my audience, I'm myself putting myself out there just to do this session, and then to also think about, okay, how am I going to engage them as well as something else? So to stop and think through your presentation and think of those points of, okay, what can I ask them now? Or how, like, is this a relevant point to stop and just put something to them as well? And maybe a little more premeditation when you're actually planning a session as well, more experience and practice.
Yeah, there's a couple of nuggets in there that are worth paying attention to. First, I think you did a wonderful job of, although it would have been tough to get the audience to reply to the questions and prompts that you were leaving for people, but your panelists really acted as that voice for your audience. And I think you did a wonderful job of facilitating that whole meeting. But one of the things about premeditating and sort of greasing the skids and making it easier for people to participate. I know those of you that were in one of the earlier sessions, I can't remember, I think we were in Chatham. I was talking to the group about, is there a way to sort of give something before the session that we could put out there, an apt YouTube video, for example, or a little bit of a promotional thing? And we did produce some promotional things that we put out to sort of whet the appetites of folks. But even just some of the key questions and topics that would be presented, is there a way to package those in an audio or video or slides or poster format that could be put out with a tweet, with the hashtag, with the conference information, so that people have a chance to think a little bit more deeply about where they're going to go? One of the things that Stephen Hurley, who's hosting the audio sessions for us, that I've shared the link in the discussion, the podcast versions of our stuff, he's looking for descriptions of what are the descriptions of what's going to happen in that session. And some of that isn't really available to me at this point. I've got sort of titles, and there's a few people that have written brief explanation of what their topic's about. I had 5 or 6 audio recordings of people explaining what their sessions were going to be about. So I had a good idea about that. But there's a few that we just had the title and we didn't have anything to sort of spark that interest. And I would suggest if going forward, one of the things we might want to do is have a public document that goes out that allows people to see a little bit more detail about what those topics are going to be about, and maybe including in there the apt YouTube video or TED Talk or promotional poster that sort of highlights the key questions. I'm just going to leave that there if anyone has any thoughts on that.
I think it gets to a piece here, Rod, where when we push it into areas of discomfort, the question is like, it's like we can handle only so much of that, right? So this is actually, I think, the gift that you're bringing to us, which is by doing in facilities debriefs, it lets us kind of reflect on it, learn from each other, learn from this process. It's the way we've walked through the week has been different. Like, audio issues get resolved. Some of the other things that kind of become the stressor that kind of almost as a barrier to those next steps. But the more comfortable I think we get in a medium, then the more some of those other higher level conversations start to emerge. And I think that's where you're pushing my thinking, but as well, I think us as a team, we're pushing our thinking around what does that look like if now we're comfortable, we understand that part of it, going back to Nicole's point earlier. Okay, so I was just trying to get my slides together. I just got to get my content, man. Like, chill out on this interaction.
I think I've heard
seriously,
from
man.
everybody in our team, like, we're selling something and I don't even know what my product is yet.
Exactly.
Like in June, it was like, I'm advertising something, but what am I going to say?
That's right.
Yeah.
This newfangled thing.
Yeah. And then in Alicia and Samantha, your sessions is like ringing true in my head right now about wait time. Like, how hard is that when you have children in front of you and you're waiting, and then really in a virtual session to have participation from the people, you need to wait and you can't look in their eyes and you can't see what's going on. Like, wait time is a whole lot harder in the digital format for me personally.
Yeah. Today when we were online, I asked a question to our guest teachers, Bree and Carly. And I think it was something like, anything else you'd like to add? And then I just was like crossing my fingers, like, come on, say something. Like, I just felt so uncomfortable. Finally, one of them spoke up, but then I didn't wait for the other one because I was kind of like, okay, I'm done waiting now. Like, it was hard. It was very uncomfortable. I should have waited longer, but you're right. It is weird online. It's different.
But I think that's the authentic piece to all of this is, because I was thinking about that exact same situation, and I know that we did reach out to Bree, and then Carly, I think, might have said something, but it's that, and Nicole, you said it earlier just about this whole process, but like being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's really, it's kind of key in this whole element. So yeah, but I think now that we've done it once, and we will be willing to push ourselves maybe a little bit further if there was enough time. Just a little bit.
That
Don't
sounds
get carried
like
away.
Yes, stress that, Alicia, maybe.
Yeah.
No,
is this like
forget
the
it.
Big Bang Theory?
So you're saying there's
in front
a
of a
chance.
studio?
Well, there might be.
What you hear is the chance. Well, one of the things that I was thinking about is this idea about doing it with other people. We talked about this briefly earlier, but there might be a way to really work on the audience end of things that's done in partnership too. So I know, Ben, you and I have had experience of broadcasting events where people had viewing parties where they actually saw the event as with a member of a group of people. And I think something like this during a school year, one of the things to consider is I was curious about the time of day thing, how that's working for people. I think mornings has generally been good for people, but I'm wondering going forward if there's a time of day for this type of thing. Is it something you would do on a PD day, or is it something you would maybe consider doing during a live session somewhere that is also broadcast out where people might be able to get together? There's really for Alicia to say, maybe there's a chance. I think the reality is that the more this becomes normalized, it's something that people will be comfortable with, but they'll also almost expect to be able to participate on their terms, as opposed to driving an hour to a session and driving an hour afterwards.
And I think too, when we were talking to one of the teachers that joined us today in the session, that is one thing that she did tell us, I think I had mentioned to you before, but she liked the platform and the ability to still feel like you're having that face-to-face interaction without having to, as you said, drive or be somewhere and then that drive time home. So I don't know. I think it opens a lot of doors for sure.
I'm thinking like if I was in a classroom this year and someone offered me the opportunity to do PD at like 3:30 when the bell rings like this, I would say absolutely, because I don't have to worry about additional daycare or anything like that. I'm already at school. I could likely do it with a bunch of people that I work with. We could all congregate in the Learning Commons or wherever it is, and it would feel easier than maybe going to a different location. And then you're already kind of with the people that you talk to on a regular basis often. So I think that would be really cool if we tried that this year.
Yeah. Well,
And it sounds like Alicia would be down for it. So
How come I'm
She's
the only one that's
leading it.
getting thrown in? I was the one, see, I should have never said, stepping out of my comfort zone, I'm all in. So
Better you
now,
than me.
I guess I'm all in.
The
So
new
Alicia
Rob
and
is
Nicole
Alicia.
together.
But maybe the people that need to speak about this are not us. Like I keep on thinking about the time I went out to Bazanquet and Gretchen and I did a session out there, and like people came in just like skipping, like, this is so nice, we didn't have to go anywhere. And like we were like, yeah, we know we should do this more. And I'm like, ask us to come out, like remind us to come out and be that kind of way. And like if you live in Sarnia or you live in Chatham, you don't understand what it means to travel to get to the board office. Like people arrive from Petrolia, like thinking, I just sped here to get here, I'm so sorry I'm late. Like walking into that environment late, it's uncomfortable. So like if they become the advocate for join in digitally and advocate like there's no travel, you can do this from home, like if rather than us tell the school populations that might be a way of adding to our audience numbers.
Well, I think this is the perfect segue to the last topic that we can maybe talk about in this little 30-minute session. And I'm going to ask Ben to sort of take the lead on this. The question about who to ask, right? The people that are doing the presenters, they're not the audience. So we invited some audience members. We didn't really get any yet today. But how do we get information back from that audience, whether they participated or not? How do we find out how they felt about that and archive it and take feedback that helps improve future offerings? And Ben, maybe this is something we could pursue in tomorrow's meeting, but maybe you could talk a little bit about what you were suggesting earlier about survey.
So very much like the conversation, getting this off the ground felt like the big effort. And so a few things that we've done all year, we didn't really do for this. And one thing we did all year is we always had a feedback form, some description ready to go to give to participants of whatever we were doing. We didn't do that. And I was reflecting on that today. I was like, oh yeah, we didn't do that yet. So maybe it would be good to put it like a Google form or something, just to start to collect some of that information we have all the email addresses, we got folks' contact information, but push that out to folks and just kind of get a quick sense of, what did they think of the sessions, how they could be improved, what they took from it, just their perspective on it, maybe some open-ended questions, a few rating scales, just something, a really quick, maybe, 5-6 kind of item survey.
Yeah, and I think that would be an ideal session. Like we could probably do that collaboratively. Maybe you were talking earlier about maybe drafting some rough ideas for questions and content that might be used that way for both presenters, but maybe think along the lines of an audience format. Yeah. And we could actually have, it would be a reflective practice by having the presenters come together tomorrow to actually, from the perspective of having hosted something, so what kind of feedback would help you as a presenter? So we can maybe hash that out, give some thought to how we might archive and capture some of those ideas and turn them into a survey so that at the end of tomorrow's meeting, we'll have a sort of a final thing that we can send out.
So I think that'd be really neat. I think it'd be really neat to do it in public, or at least together, to kind of share some of that thinking, because the earnest want from this is that we want to learn, and we want to be responsive, and we want to make sure that we're honoring people's time and effort, and making sure that we're providing, you can say value, just that's worthwhile. So I think that would be really neat to be able to do, and then just kind of show that process. And I think this is a perfect platform for that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so you mentioned honoring time. You mentioned that right at 30 minutes. And I want to honor all of your time. I suggested these little debriefs. We should try and limit them to 30 minutes. And we're there. We're at that point right now. But I want to take a moment just to thank each of you. It's clear whether you got artwork behind you that your children have done, or you're out on a deck somewhere, or you're waiting for a plane. People have things to do. So by making the time to sort of
finger.
Reading my book.
Is that
I'm
the
lazy
middle
to go
finger,
sailing,
Sam?
but I'm actually getting a little
It's a
scared.
bunny. I swear it's a bunny.
Well,
It's the middle finger. I was like, what are you saying to us there, Sam?
for listeners, it's visual. You're going to have to miss it. It's not going to make sense to
It's a
you.
very visual podcast, right? Very visual podcast.
But understanding that everyone is genuinely busy and is still making time to reflect on the experience, it's real. I really appreciate you taking the time to join in. So we'll archive this and share it forward. You guys go do that rest of the day kind of stuff you have to do. I know you have busy stuff going on.
Yeah, I'm going sailing, but I'm actually a little scared. The sky's looking a little dark and thunder and lightning, so might be nice knowing you.
We're headed off to Cedar Point for tomorrow. So.
Oh, that's my favorite late summer trip, Cedar Point. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good luck. Have fun.
Thanks.
Safe travels home, Ben and
Bye, guys.
Marilyn. Have fun, everyone.
Sam,
Yes.
can you get some
Have a good
new
flight.
artwork for that wall?
No.
No middle fingers anymore.
Oh my goodness. Take good care, everyone.